November 15th. I'm Scott.
And I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss the comic Ex Machina. Let's do this.
So today, down at Fordham Plaza, I was done with some work and I had to go to an ATM to get enough money to pay for the parking to get out of the parking garage I was in. So on my way back from getting a bunch of money out of this really dodgy looking ATM on the street near Grand Concourse in the Bronx.
I would never use an ATM on the street, ever.
Well, I found one legitimate looking ATM, right? And it was out of order. And I needed money because I had to pay to get my car out of this garage. I was parked there for an hour, so it was like $20. I mean, my company's going to pay me back. It's not like it's a big deal, but...
Yeah, I know. It's just annoying.
Yeah. So, as I'm on my way out, I decide to get a smoothie. And there's another gentleman who is standing there waiting for his smoothie while I order mine. And he looks like a punk kid. He looks about my age, maybe a little younger. And he's talking into his cell phone, kind of hunched over. And I hear him say the words, Man, there's an emergency. Yeah, this is deep shit. One of my boys was over on, I forget what street he said. And he saw James. Yeah, that fucker. Well, tell you what, round the boys up and we're going to go get him. Meet me at blah. And he talks for a while. And then he hangs up, takes a smoothie, and walks away. And I think, my guess, is that this is some sort of gang-related violence that was being planned in line for my smoothie.
If you're not lying, it would be hard to disagree.
I mean, the guy had a blue kind of bandana around his head and all that. And the conversation was very, very not up to the standards of moral behavior sounding.
Was he a Crip or a Blood or perhaps a hoodlum?
Well, considering that he was wearing a lot of blue, if he's anything, he was probably a Crip. Not that I know much about...
I don't know shit about that. I know as much as I knew from that South Park episode.
Yeah, with Timmy and Jimmy.
And the Crips.
Yeah.
You shitty walk.
That wasn't even in that episode.
It was, because remember they would go in there and he'd be like, just take my money.
But he didn't say... Oh, I guess he did, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, we've been watching a lot of South Park lately.
We have indeed.
And we've been trying not to let the South Park slip in, but it's real easy to quote South Park.
It's basically taken over for The Simpsons.
Yeah, the only thing bigger than that for us is still, you can't watch Tim Simpson.
You can't watch it. You can't prevent 10 South Park things.
That's not Snorlax, that's Borlax.
It's Borlax.
Anyway, we actually are going to take a trend from, Anime World Order and all that. We've got 2 anime-related newses for Anime Manga Comics Day.
You can't have 2 anime-related newses.
I don't know why, but I didn't expect you to say that. I really didn't.
Yeah,
well, it came out of nowhere. I was... Yeah, so bust out with your news.
So, at the New York Comic-Con...
Oh, great.
Yeah. If you don't know, the New York Comic-Con is a new comic convention that's in New York City at the Jacob Javits Center. The first one ever was last year in February. I tried to go to it and failed because they had it in the small... Have you ever been to the Javits Center? There's a big-ass open room that can be divided into 3 pieces, but usually it's one big-ass room. And when someone has a convention there, they use the whole big-ass upstairs room, like the car show, uses the whole upstairs. There's also a downstairs for smaller shows. The New York Comic Convention used one half of the downstairs and sold way more tickets than they could fit people in there, which was dumb. So, after not being able to get into the convention, I was like, fuck, these people don't know how to run a convention.
Yeah, Scott wasn't the only one boned. I'd say the majority of people who tried to go to this convention got boned.
Yeah, there were people with pre-orders who couldn't get in.
There were guests?
There were guests who were in, like Doug Rushkoff, who was there, signing his book that he writes at the DC table, was in there signing his book. Then he went out. Then he couldn't get back in.
Yeah, it was...
Like the president of DC Comics. Anyway, this convention, which is going to be held again this year and will supposedly be using the upstairs and have all the space it needs and not be crowded and impossible to get into, but still have all the high-profile guests, apparently, is going to also have the American Anime Awards at it this year. Now, the American Anime Awards are apparently just going to be some, official award ceremony for American anime and manga. Or not so much American anime and manga, but manga and anime that has been released in America this year. So while I guess Ava's never going to win, but if someone puts out a new release of it this year, ADV puts out a release this year, maybe that release might be eligible for a prize or something.
Yeah, they got a whole bunch of categories here. Best actor, best actress, best actor in a comedy. They break off comedy from everything
It's weird
else.
because they have special awards for comedy, but they don't have special awards for any other genre. Comedy's the only genre breakdown. And I can kind of see why, being that in comedy, not being serious. I mean, drama's serious. Most action are kind of serious, at least in anime, But comedies are never serious, so it's hard to win a best something award when your show isn't serious. So comedy would be the first genre you would break out. But yeah, best DVD package design.
Yeah.
Best anime theme sound. Here's the ones I don't get. If these are the American Anime Awards, right? Why you can't really give the awards based on the quality of the anime itself, because the anime is made by people in Japan. It's not. You got to give awards for the work done by the American
Not
companies.
necessarily. What you could do, at least what I would do with awards like this, is it's the American awards being given to whoever. So they're given to...
Yeah, but I'd still say the focus should, at least in my opinion, be on the work that is done bringing it over to America, and not on the work creating the original work, because that's not the American Anime Awards. That would just be the Anime Awards.
I don't know. I see what they're doing here. I see what you did here.
Yep.
They're trying to bring anime into the mainstream because this is the kind of thing that would generate a lot of press releases, and the news would at least pay lip service like, and blah, blah, blah won the Anime Awards last weekend at the New York City Comic Con.
Yeah, I think what it really is, if you look at any other sort of products, DVDs in general, books, they always put labels on them of awards they've won. Like, you go to the store and you look at a DVD, and it's always got those, like, this won all these awards at these film festivals, and they've got those little, like, wheat kind of little icons. You go buy books in the store, and books always have, like, I was in the New York Times bestseller list, and the author won Hugo and Nebula awards for science fiction and blah, blah, blah. But anime can't say really anything about awards except for the occasional Oscar-nominated Miyazaki movie.
Well, there are awards in Japan that Americans don't know anything about.
Yeah, I don't even know if there are awards in Japan.
Well,
I know nothing about them at all.
I have seen or heard of anime that have won various awards, but I don't think they're that big even in Japan. They might be like, Geeknights can give out awards.
Yeah.
I hereby give the award for best podcast to Geeknights.
Awesome. No, but even comic books in America, they've got Eisner Awards and Harvey Awards and stuff, but anime doesn't. So the reason they're having this is probably, one, to generate a lot of, anime action in an industry that's not doing as well as it was before Media Play went out of business. And two, now when they put anime, you go into the store, you see all this anime, and if you don't keep up with it on the internet, you don't know what's good and what's bad. But if they can start putting stuff like one best anime of 2001, it'll sort of bring stuff out to people who just walk around looking at the shelf.
Yeah, I don't know. I imagine what's going to happen is they're going to be announced, and all the super fans who watch everything, the day after it comes out in Japan, fan sub from BitTorrent, are going to bitch about how, but they don't know anything about Nana and Ergo Proxy and whatever I'm watching right now, therefore they're crap and they're wrong.
Ugh.
I imagine a lot of other people are going to complain about how the show that should have won didn't win. And the people who think that the show that won deserved it probably won't say anything because they won't even know.
So the same shit that everyone does for every other stupid, meaningless award.
Yeah, I mean, as a person, I couldn't care less about all of these awards. The Academy Awards, I haven't even known who won for the last several years.
I just find it funny that they're giving out the American Anime Awards at the New York Comic Con instead of at
Otakon
Anime or
Expo.
Anime Expo. What the hell? It's like they're just totally disrespecting the anime conventions to go to the comic convention. Anime is punning comics. Yet they're I don't get it. I don't know what the logic is with that one.
Yeah, well, did they say anything in the article? I didn't read the whole article as to why they chose the New York Comic Con.
No, I have no idea. Anime and manga are an important part of what the New York Comic Con is here to celebrate. We're proud to be hosting this special event.
All right, something must have changed hands somewhere. maybe I could see.
Anime was had a pretty good presence at the Comic-Con. It is primarily a comic convention.
Well,
but
the thing,
the anime people were doing stuff there.
Well,
I think
here's what I've noticed.
What's her name? The Macross Minmay
Yeah,
singer
they did.
was there last year.
But going to the one Comic-Con I went to and hearing reports from other people who go to Comic-Cons, it seems like a lot of anime fans are really starved for more cons and more anime stuff. So a lot of anime fans end up going to Comic-Cons and, I guess, spoiling the fun of the super fans who are angry that there's people dressed up as Naruto at their comic convention.
Yeah, there were a bunch of Narutards in line when I was waiting outside of that Comic-Con.
Well, at the Philly Wizard World, that Comic-Con, the only people who would interview with me, other than those two guys who were looking for Silver Age comics and only Silver Age comics, were all these people who actually weren't having a good time, but they were all anime fans cosplaying as anime things who didn't know that comic conventions aren't like anime cons.
Yeah, and there were some anime type people in the artist alley. But,
Yeah, there were.
But yeah, I'm just saying, this is, I don't know, the American Anime Awards at the New York Comic Convention. What are you going to do?
Well, the thing is, I don't want to ever bother with the New York Comic Convention after what happened last year.
Yeah, I really don't want to, but now it's kind of like,
we're going to have to send someone to cover this thing now.
I might just go, what's that? I think I'm going to go with my original plan of I'm going to let people who are going to go on Friday will tell me what happened there, and then on Saturday I'll go down if the word is good.
Well, what I might do, because now our situation is reversed. I work in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So I might just go there Friday.
Oh, good. Then you can tell me if it was worth going.
Yeah.
There is the thing about the New York Comic Con that other Comic Cons don't have is they really do have lots and lots and lots of high profile people in, comics and a whole bunch of other related geekiness and industries.
Except I've found, and even at anime cons, even if I really like a guest and I really want to hear what they have to say, usually even big names at conventions tend to either answer a lot of stupid questions from people in the audience that are just completely retarded. Because people ask the crap that you can find in Wikipedia. They're like, so what was your favorite thing that you ever directed?
I hate that shit.
Yeah. No one ever asks.
Don't ask a question that Google can answer.
Yeah, or a question that's just lame, or the kind of question that everyone in the world would ask. Ask something weird.
Yeah.
Or something cool, or something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish.
The kind of questions the Geeknights would ask if they were interviewing the person for a show.
Or even Anime World Order.
Yeah.
What I have always wanted, and I pushed this at CitaCon, but the con really wasn't set up for it, and I'm trying to push this at some other cons, but instead of having a panel where the guest comes up, does their spiel, and then the audience asks questions, I'd rather see a moderated discussion or an interview panel where someone is up front and the guest is up front, and someone interviews the guest like it was a talk show, like Stephen Colbert interviewing someone. Or
even better, if people wanted to ask questions at the panel, they would have to write them, and they had a single line to write them on. None of this because the one thing I hate, this bothered me a lot because I was watching a video of Richard Dawkins asking a question, and people, when they're at panels or lectures, they just ask, some of them, not everyone, they ask questions so poorly. Like, they just keep saying a whole bunch of extra words. It's like, just say your fucking question. This guy was like, well, considering blah, 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 in relation to blah, 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 and blah, 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 but not blah, 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 the question. You should have just said the question.
Because some people, not to, call a kettle that may be a certain color, but some people like to hear the sound of their own voice. And two, really, and this bothers me a lot because I see this at so many cons, people want to sound smart and look cool. So they get up front and they try to ask a smart question, and they use all those big words and semicolons they learned about in school.
The way to look cool when asking a question is to have a really short question that's really direct and is also really witty.
You mean like when I asked Magic Johnson how it was to work with Captain Lou Albano on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show?
That is a perfect example.
And when that was one of my favorite moments in life.
Mm-hmm.
When his answer just...
Or the other way to do it is to ask a perfectly normal question, like, when are you going to do blah?
Yeah.
And then, to have like a witty answer. Like, if he says yes, then I'll say this. If he says no, then I'll say this, and it'll be funny either way. It's like, when are you going to do blah? Well, never. You suck. But not you suck, something clever.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I'd love to see, a David Letterman style kind of just interview the guest in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because things like having one guy talk at you guys who heard the Only Rim episode or the Only Scott episode of the show know that one guy talking is a lot less interesting and a lot harder to do than two guys talking.
Yep. Also, that way the time won't be wasted asking all these questions that are just like no comment.
What's your favorite color? How old are you?
What they should do really is they should have the people who want to ask a question should submit the question beforehand. Like, I don't know, maybe on a website or something. And then someone will take this list of questions submitted by people at the panel somehow. Maybe use technology to do it in some way. And then cross off all the ones that are stupid and just ask all the good questions.
And I did this to a degree at the Anime Club Summit at Otakon, I think 2 years ago, one of them, where instead of sitting on the panel, I decided to be the MC. And I walked around with a microphone, and while they were answering a question up there, I'd wander around the audience with my mic off, sit down next to the people who had questions, and talk to them a bit like, so what do you want to ask? Blah. All right, you want to ask this or that? And I'd get it out of them, and I'd kind of assess them. And if they were cool, I'd hand them the mic and let them ask the question. Otherwise, I would ask the question for them, or I just wouldn't ask their question. That way, no one dumb could get a hold of that microphone.
Yeah, if you had like 2 or 3 staff, 2 could probably do it for a small panel easily, because one person is there with the current question, and the other person's looking for the next question. Just goes and screens the questions. Then it works out great.
All right, so to get on to some other news.
Wow, that was long news.
Yeah, it was, but there's a lot to say. Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, God.
Is being...
You can't watch 10 Dragon Ball Zs.
How about you can't watch 290 or more Dragon Ball Zs?
I thought there were... I guess you could, because there are that many.
There are over 290 episodes of Dragon Ball Z.
Actual half-hour episodes or the 15-minute ones?
Actual episodes.
Wow, okay.
Now, the awesome thing is that Dragon Ball Z, due to popular demand, is being remastered frame for frame by Funimation for a super uber ultimate awesome DVD box set release of all of it.
Well, I guess that's sort of a good thing.
In 1080p.
That's sort of silly.
With digital remastering and everything. They're removing scratches.
It's a little bit excessive.
They're doing a brand new print from a brand new transfer from the original prints, and they're remastering it entirely frame by frame in 1080p. They're going to sell it season by season for $49.98.
Per season?
Yeah, which is like 900 minutes of anime for $50.
It might be
in other words, for $50 you get 1.5 fights. But
so it might actually, being not a fan of Dragon Ball Z at all, actually being a hater of Dragon Ball Z, it might be worth it to just buy season 1.
See, I remember in high school, I'd always come home and I set my VCR to tape Pokemon.
Wait, are these going to be HD DVDs? Or Blu-rays? Because how else is it going to be 1080p?
They're just going to be DVDs.
How's it going to be 1080p?
I think they're remastering it in 1080p, but then they're going to transfer it to DVD when they're done. I don't know.
I don't know. That's kind of weird.
But it's very specifically says DVD.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to release much on Blu-ray or HD DVD anytime soon, considering the market for it.
Yeah. I do think it's a good idea, though, because, the anime industry, not like I said before, not doing as well as it was doing in a few years ago. Since the media play thing and everything. And, they brought out over a lot of new shows, but none of the new shows are really the smash hits,
Oh, hate to interrupt, but I read the article more thoroughly. 1080p is what they did the transfer in and the remastering in.
Oh, okay.
So they'll have it ready if they want to release it in the future on whatever HD format there is. It'll be ready to go. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. But, they pretty much already re-released all the hit series. I mean, they've re-released Ava 6 times. They already re-released Cowboy Bebop Super Remix. The Akira movie Super Remix.
Escaflowne.
Yeah. Everything is either in a nice slim case box or whatever. Dragon Ball Z, the DVD releases of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball GT and all those Dragon Ball shows are still, I'm pretty sure there's only been one legal American release of all those things, and they've all been pretty terrible and difficult to collect all of them and not easily affordable and all that jazz. So I really think this is kind of a good idea to make a big cash run, get some monies.
Plus, I mean, Dragon Ball Z has a lot of fans, and I've seen maybe 15 episodes of it, random ones.
I've seen maybe 3.
And it's got some funny stuff in it. It's not a great show. And the fact that people take it at face value scares me. But then again, when I was a kid, I took Project A-ko at face value. I was like, wow, she's a superhero. This is awesome. Oh, my God, the school's going to get destroyed. What will they do? I didn't know. I didn't know it was a joke. They're all cross-dressers on the spaceship.
Lost
whatever.
in translation. All right, so...
But Dragon Ball Z is kind of funny because it's kind of a parody of fighting shows, except that, people took it seriously.
Yeah. While I don't like Dragon Ball Z, I think this is a good way for Funimation to get a bunch of money so that they can buy some real and better anime series and bring those over. Funimation does a pretty good job with most of their releases, kind of.
Well, that, and you know what?
They do an average job.
I would never begrudge a fan of a show anything. If someone really likes, I don't know, MD Geist, it's cool if they put out like an MD Geist awesome box that comes with a football uniform.
Yeah, I won't buy it, but... If that's your thing, good for you. And I think this is going to make a lot of Dragon Ball fans happy because there's still shit tons of Dragon Ball fans out there.
God, when I worked...
And this will probably make them more money than any other anime release of the next few years.
At RIT, I worked in a sub shop one summer. And at that sub shop, there were no geeks there. It was all like normal people. Most of them weren't even in college. They were like high school punk kids or punk kids who didn't go to college. And one of them, none of them knew anything about anime or anything, but one of them watched Dragon Ball Z all the time. And I didn't realize this till one day he was mopping. He's like, Kamehameha! And then he'd run across the room with the mop. And then he'd turn around and do it again.
Oh, God. How old is this kid?
He was probably like 2 years younger than me at the time.
All right. Okay.
So you want to hear people talk about Japanese cartoons?
Anime.
But you think the other anime podcasters just aren't nerdy enough?
Sounds like you need to join forces with the Anime World Order.
Where each week 3 self-proclaimed experts offer you reviews
of titles both new and classic, news and commentary,
rants, convention reports, interviews with fandom,
and some hentai and yaoi for good measure.
So search for anime in the iTunes Music Store.
Or visit our website at animeworldorder.com.
Anime World Order, revealing the truth about anime, one podcast at a time.
Things of the day. Now, in a land.
In a world.
In a place.
In a time.
In a land before time.
No, not a Land Before Time. That sucks.
Yeah, it's from... Hey, Land Before Time 1 was a pretty damn good movie for a 7-year-old.
All right, for a 7-year-old, it was okay.
Yeah. Land Before Time 8, not so good.
Someone to tell us how many there are now.
I know there at least...
I know there's a lot because I saw something with a lot of Roman numerals on it at the store.
There's at least like 4 or 5, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But my thing of the day here, someone did this video, some radio station or TV station or something. I don't even know. I barely paid attention to it. But the important part is it is a video about the guy who does pretty much every movie trailer in America. Don LaFontaine. He is that guy who does that voice.
Yeah, every movie trailer, is like something, 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 something. That's the Don LaFontaine is the guy who does those trailers, and he does that voice.
He's been doing this for a long time.
How long has he been doing it?
He was doing work in the 60s and 70s.
Holy crap.
And to this day, he does like 50 or 60 a week. He does everything. He
must really crank these things out.
He does. He does up to 35 in a day, according to Wikipedia.
Well, I guess since you're not doing anything else, that's not too hard.
I mean, what a thing. This guy's talent is that he has an awesome voice. Kind of like the Lionel guy.
Yeah.
That guy
Lion-O.
really... Well, whatever.
Lionel is a train.
Lionel is a train company that I visited when I was a kid.
Yes. Lion-O is the Thundercat.
I often mix the two up.
Trains and Thundercats. Who knew?
You could make some kind of animated GIF about that.
Lionel, Lion-O, Thunder. Thunder Train. Choo-choo.
Anyway, this is just kind of a funny video with this guy really taking himself not seriously and being funny.
Yeah, it's good to see that he's actually a cool guy who's not all weird and reclusive or anything like that.
Well, you know what? He makes 6 or 7 figures.
Well, he has to because all these movies are making a fortune, And without his voice, your trailer's got nothing. So, yeah, so you gotta get the guy. It's like in V for Vendetta when the voice of Fate changes and it's such a big deal. Imagine when this guy's no more and they have to find different people to do movie voiceovers. That's gonna be in our lifetime probably when this guy retires.
No, by then
All movie trailers are gonna be totally weird not having this guy.
By then we'll have computers to perfectly do it.
Maybe
We'd
we'll
better.
be able to have a computer to recreate Don LaFontaine's voice for all time.
Well, luckily this guy looks real healthy and real strong. And the cool thing is, from what you
But
see
he's
in this
got to
video,
be to have that voice.
well, they call him the voice of God or Thunder Throats.
That sounds right to me.
But the cool thing is, you know how most people who do voices for stuff, they have a different voice in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
This guy always sounds like that.
Yeah, it's just that's the voice he has.
Like, he can turn it up and do it more, like double, but his normal talking voice is just like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, just watch the video and we don't need to explain it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, my thing of the day is a hilarious video.
Roflcopter times a million.
The title of the video is Stupidest Robber Ever, Stupidest Criminal Ever, right? It starts out where this guy is going to rob a convenience store. And obviously, you know from the title of the video, he's going to do something dumb. Perhaps he's going to, I don't know, get shot by the convenience store clerk, or he's gonna steal something and try to run out the door but hit his head on the door and fall over.
Get stuck in a chimney somewhere.
Yeah, who knows? So it starts out where he's behind the store. Now, everything he does, they use all the security cameras in the store. The store must have like 6 or 7 cameras. And they show you what he's doing from all sorts of angles at all sorts of different times. First, he tries to climb up on the roof outside the store.
With predictable results.
And there's a camera outside the store watching him outside trying to climb on the roof. You can guess what happens. Then he tries to get into the store by making a hole in the roof. You can guess what happens there.
It's so great. You see, like, debris falls, debris falls, debris falls, debris falls. Dude falls and lands on his head.
Yep. Surprisingly, he never, like, injures himself enough to be knocked out.
That first fall, it looks like he dies. If I fell like that, I would be dead. And yet he gets right up and he's like, oh, great.
So the sun is coming up and he's proceeding to rob the store.
You know, actually, I'll bet he was passed out for a while there.
He could have been. I mean, it was day when he got up. He probably was passed out for a long time. Anyway, gets up, starts robbing the store. He gets a 40. He's smoking in the store, you know. Then he tries to get out of the store, and he can't get out the front door.
Yeah, the door's locked. So first he's like, bang. He's trying to bust it open, and he can't. He's trying to pry it open in really poorly thought out ways.
Right. So this guy, he got into his store. He robbed it a little bit, and now he can't get out. So he tries to exit. He finds a ladder, and he tries to get out the hole in the roof. That ends hilariously as well. Basically, the video goes on, and he does more and more dumb shit until finally the police are at the front door of the store. He can't get out. He lays down with his face on the ground and his hands behind his head, then the cops come in and arrest him.
I think one of my favorite parts, other than, you know, the 2 big falls, is when he sees the camera there finally, and he tries to throw something.
I don't know if he
it.
threw something at the camera. I think he threw something for the sake of throwing something.
Yeah, but it looked like he was aiming at the camera.
It could have been. It doesn't really matter. The point is he's just, like, pissed off, and he can't do anything because he's dumbass.
Yeah.
So he takes, like, a big, giant bottle and throws it.
Now, when you think the video's over, watch it until the end, because they do a quick reprise of all the major events in the video.
Yeah. It's just so entertaining because you watch it and you think, okay, there's, you know, you see him fall once and you're like, oh, okay, that's the end of that. But no, it gets dumber and dumber. I couldn't really imagine it being any worse.
I'd almost want to talk to this guy just to see what he'd have to say for himself. I
don't think he's smart enough to eloquently express what he was thinking.
No, here's my idea, my multi-million-dollar idea.
All right.
So we get this guy. He's probably in jail. He'll get out eventually. We get him. We take this video, we pay him to do commentary on the video, and then we sell that DVD.
Oh, my God.
I mean, imagine the commentator's like, I don't know what I was trying to do there. I was high. I was high.
Lol.
Man, I was passed out for like a day. I don't know when I got up, but the sun was coming up.
Yeah, they obviously cut out lots of boring parts of the video where he just walks around and does nothing.
Yeah, they get right back to him when he's trying to climb out the roof in desperation.
Yeah.
All right. So it's been a while since we've talked about anything other than anime on Anime Day.
So we're going to talk about some comics, and
Well-
not the manga kind.
Yeah, but not so much the underwear pervert kind either.
Well, it's 25% underwear pervert,
Yeah.
I would say. We're going to talk about a comic called Ex Machina, written by the man, Brian K. Vaughan, with art by Tony Harris, and it is published by Wildstorm, which is really just DC with a different name on it.
So-
It's an imprint.
Brian K. Vaughan, what else has he done of note?
Brian K. Vaughan is only, like, the best comic writer right now. He's written Why the Last Man, which is going to end soon. He's written Runaways, which he's going to stop writing, and Joss Whedon's going to write that. I think that was in news a while ago. He's doing a mini-series of Doctor Strange comics, which you can find on the shelves right now. He's doing Ex Machina right now. It was something else. Oh, he did a mini-series of The Escapist for Dark Horse. He's basically writing comics left and right and up and down, and most of them are awesome. He's basically, as far as I'm concerned, could do no wrong when it comes to writing comics. Everything he has written that I have read has been great. Oh, Pride of Baghdad. He wrote Pride of Baghdad.
I haven't read that yet, but Emily did, and I think you did too.
Yep.
And I want to. I just haven't got a chance. You know what? I'll read it before.
If you read anything by Brian K. Vaughan, read Pride of Baghdad. It's a one-shot comic. It's only hardcover right now, but it's pretty cheap. If you want, just wait for the softcover to come out and buy it. It's a single graphic novel, just one book. You read it, you're done.
Warning, it's sad.
It's real sad.
It's not a happy thing. If it's your birthday, you probably don't want to read this.
No, don't read it on your birthday. Don't read it on a sad day either when other sad things happen.
Yeah, like if your pet just died, or it's your birthday and you have a pet lion.
Read it on a perfectly normal day, like before you go to bed or something.
So you have horrible nightmares about being a lion in
Yes.
Baghdad.
So, Ex Machina.
It's
Awesome.
It's really good. And remember, this is coming from me, the man who absolutely hates 99% of underwear pervert comics. And I mean, I can't read this shit. I tried to read something to review it with Scott, and I couldn't finish it.
All right, so let me sum up the plot of Ex Machina pretty quickly. There's a guy named Mitchell Hundred, as in his last name is Hundred, as in 100. And he's a dude in New York. I forget what his original job was. It wasn't something, it wasn't very high profile. And one day he randomly gets some superpowers. The superpower is that he can communicate with and control technology. If the technology is too simple, like a hammer, he can't really do anything. But if you've got like a gun, he can just say, jam, and the gun will jam. If you've got a computer, he doesn't even touch the keyboard. He just talks to it with his brain or with his mouth, and he commands it. And he tells the computer what to do. I'm not going to tell you how he got the powers or the origin or anything like that, because it's kind of silly. Well, it's not entirely silly,
Well,
but it's sort of spoilery.
compared to most superhero comic type stuff, it's actually really more sci-fi than anything.
It is very sci-fi, sort of. Like The Rocketeer is really how far it goes with the sci-fi superhero kind of stuff. Because, I mean, the dude gets a jetpack that some crazy Russian guy made for him and all that kind of stuff. So as far as the superhero...
The Russian guy's my favorite character.
Yeah. As far as the superheroing part of it goes, think The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
But that's not why this comic is awesome. Anyone could write, you know, a Rocketeer clone with a different power, and it would be okay. Why this is awesome is because the story starts not when he has superpowers and is fighting villains or saving one of the towers of the World Trade Center from falling down.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing I want to talk about in a minute.
Okay. That's not where the story begins. The story begins where he is the mayor of New York because he's decided he could do better to help the city by being the mayor than by being a superhero that flies around with a jetpack. And most of the plot lines are mostly political in nature. Like, someone makes a controversial piece of artwork and wants to put it in a museum, so he has to deal with it, and he has to deal with, you know, what the people think, and
Yeah.
you know, he's the mayor of New York, and he's dealing with things that are kind of realistic in a West Wing TV show sort of way for what the mayor of New York would have to do.
Yeah, and the characters really well fleshed out, and the politics are interesting in that they're not all consistently to the left, to the right, to center. They're all over the place.
Yeah, he's not like some bleeding heart liberal guy. He's not some wicked war hawk conservative guy. he sort of does things that make sense, and sometimes you agree and sometimes you disagree, and sometimes you're like, yeah, that's what you should do, and sometimes you're like, why are you doing that? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and he disagrees with things that he does. Like, at one point, he ends up banning smoking in New York City, but at the same time, he's pissed off about it, and he goes to smoke cigarettes all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because he does things a lot of times for, political reasons. I think it's a very, while not 100% realistic, it's a more realistic political scenario than other things would have you, and say Sanctuary or Eagle.
Yeah.
or
Captain America.
Or Captain America.
I mean, what's the moral of Sanctuary is, if you're a badass, you can rape your way to the top.
Yeah, Ex Machina is a little more realistic than that. And what's cool is, there's superheroing, but it provides sort of this background, sort of like Fancy Lala. It's a magical girl show, but it has this dinosaur plot hiding in the background. So whenever the magical girl stuff gets a little boring, they always have this little dinosaur plot going on to keep it together.
Ex
Machina has this political mayor of New York story, this little superhero thing going on in the background.
I worry one day that we're going to actually see the end of Fancy Lala and find out what that dinosaur thing's about.
And it's going to be disappointing as all hell.
It's going to be totally lame, and we'll feel cheated out of the previous 7 years.
That's why I'm probably never going to watch the end of Fancy Lala.
It's just like Black Samurai. We can't watch it. It'll
but I
ruin the
am
magic.
going to read all of Ex Machina.
Now, one thing that's cool is Scott mentioned, the World Trade Center, and there are other little things like this, but history pretty much diverges from actual American history at the point at which this guy gets his superpowers. So they won't show any of this stuff. Like, they don't show him doing all these things. In fact, they skip over a lot of his past and reveal it in tiny flashbacks throughout the reading. And they allude to things. Like, they kind of allude to the fact that the towers were saved by this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then they allude to it more and more. And it's kind of this slightly altered history. Like, wow, things are a little bit different in this world as a result of this, with far-reaching consequences.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool that, there were a bunch of superheroing standard underwear pervert adventures at some point in the timeline of this story. But those events do not take place on the pages of Ex Machina. They have taken place in the way past. So they could write a whole prequel comic to this that would be just as big and crazy as every other superhero comic, but they don't. They're only telling this story, which is way cooler because it has lots of political action and not so much flying around talking to guns action.
And also, the thing that I think is really cool is that almost every superhero thing suffers from supervillain syndrome, where, all right, you have a superhero. Well, the only thing that a superhero could ever have trouble with is an equally powerful supervillain. Thus, there's a flimsy excuse for some supervillain for them to fight. In this, there aren't really supervillains per se. There are things that happen for the same reasons that this guy has his power, but they're really not at all like the classic, I am the evil Magneto and I am going to oppose everything Professor Xavier does.
Yeah, occasionally, I think there's a couple plot lines where there is someone making mischief or people targeting him in some way. But it's never like a supervillain. It's more of if he finds out what's going on, he can usually fix it. Most of the time, he fixes it with his mayoral powers, and very rarely he fixes it with his superhero powers, which he's not supposed to use because I think the government told him not to.
Yeah.
Because it's all secret and everything. And he has this room he can go into where his powers won't work. But yeah, it's there aren't any villains in the classic sense of, haha, I'm the monster of the week. You must defeat me in a fight. It's like, oh, here's the political situation of the week. Or there'll be two situations going on at the same time. One of them will be strictly a political thing, and one of them will be he's got both hands full all the time. There's never just one thing he's paying attention to, which is, like I said, pretty realistic because mayor's got to deal with all kinds of shit. Some council guy is going crazy. There's something going down. There's some labor strike. And there's also a crazy killer going on around making people feel unsafe.
Yep, and he wants to go stop the killer, but all the government is like, no, you're the mayor. The police will take care of that.
Yeah, that's one of the best things I love about this book is that most of the characters are the people around the mayor, all his advisors. And he's got a bunch of different crazy advisors. He's got the guy with the dreads. He's got the really tough police commissioner woman. the Hispanic one, and there are all these cast of characters directly around him, and he sends them off on assignments, like, to go do things, and you see them do it well because they're all awesome. But he'll get into fights with, like, the police commissioner. Like, he says, there's a law that says there can't be any psychics. Go out and bust the psychics. And the police lady's like, no, we don't want to do it. He's like, you're going to do it. There's a law. Go enforce it. Go do it now. Because he doesn't like psychics, which is good, because I don't like psychics either. But yeah, there's all this cool stuff going on with those people as they disagree with him, agree with him, do his bidding, don't do his bidding, tell him what to do. And you'll see sometimes he'll disagree with the advisor, and what he says is what goes. And sometimes the advisors will convince him of something when he doesn't know better. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've said this about other things before. I think Gasaraki was a big example, but as far as this sort of thing goes, it's very realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say that about a superhero comic or a giant robot.
The superhero parts of this comic are not realistic.
But in terms of it's realistic in that suspension of disbelief is easy to maintain, and that something non-believable may happen, but the way the people in the story react to it and the way it plays out is very realistic. As if that happened in the real world, this is probably how people would tend to react to it.
What else can be said about this awesome comic besides that you should all go and read it many times?
You should all go and read it at least once. I don't read comics more than once, really.
Yeah.
Except maybe I want to read Sanctuary again.
Yeah, kind of.
I want to read it knowing what happens in the end.
Maybe I will read this again when the next volume comes out. Right now, there are 3 volumes of Ex Machina available, trade paperbacks. But it is a monthly comic that you can buy in comic book form, 1 issue at a time, and it comes out once a month. I don't know if you'll be able to get all the previous issues, but you can definitely get the new issue when it comes out each month. There's also an Ex Machina special that is just 2 issues that is a special side story from the past or whatever. And I have them, but I don't know if they might publish those in a future trade paperback or not. It's unclear if that's going to happen. But yeah, it's totally cool.
So before we close up the show for tonight, I got a couple of little meta things. Well, one thing that I really want to tell all of you out there, because I know you don't all go to the forums, but way back we did a show on Big O2, a Final Thoughts episode where we spoiled the whole show and we talked about all of it. We analyzed the show from our perspective as viewers, and we really kind of did our final, here's what I think of the way this show ended and the way, when this character died and when this thing exploded and blah, blah, blah. In a way that we really can't talk about a show when we're reviewing it because, spoiling things for people is not cool. And I hate to do a show where all the people who haven't seen the show, the other show that we're talking about on our show, have to not listen.
Yeah, it's nice to say that 99.9% of the episodes of Geeknights anyone can listen to without prerequisite other than understanding and comprehending the English language. It's like if all of a sudden, in order to listen to Geeknights, you had to have already seen a show or already played a video game in order to get entertainment value out of it, as opposed to negative entertainment out of it, then that's not a good thing because it basically alienates a bunch of listeners.
But at the same time, that episode was really fun to do. It was very, very popular. And more importantly, many of you have been asking us to do that for other shows. So now is your chance. We could do them every week. There's a lot of anime we've seen that we could talk about in excruciating pain.
I need to refresh my mind, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and hence, in order to make this the best for everyone, I made a thread in the forums where I want you to nominate what shows you want us to do this for. And then after another week or so, when all the nominations I think that are worth it are in, I'm going to make a poll. And whatever show wins the poll, we are going to, as soon as it's feasible, do a final thoughts. Here's exactly what we think about this show and how it ended show.
Yeah, basically we're looking for shows that most people have seen in their entirety and would be interested in hearing an in-depth analysis of.
Right now, the front runners seem to be Utena and Trigon.
Yeah, those are pretty good ones.
Now, of course, we can't do a show that we haven't seen, and whatever show it is, we're probably going to watch it through real quick again to refresh our memory.
Or at least watch the important episodes, or, watch each episode for a few minutes to remind us, oh yeah, then this episode, then that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, if you want us to talk about Gundam Seed, I need a little bit of time.
Yep. 50-episode monster.
Yeah. The thing is, That show's easy to talk about,
Yeah, Gundam Seed would actually be a pretty good one. I wouldn't mind if people voted for that.
especially since I'm watching it again.
And I've seen it like 1.75 times because I watched it 3/4 of the way through on Fansub, and then I watched the whole thing through on DVD. So it wouldn't be too bad to do that show.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun watching the end of the show again, I gotta say.
It's a fun show, even though it's not the best show ever.
Yeah, other than when certain characters cry.
Yeah.
God.
It's mostly the noises they make, not the fact that they're crying.
Atheron, kid. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, stay tuned tomorrow for something. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.